Hello, hello, and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny. And for the week of July 18th through the 24th, the sun will be in gate 56 and the earth in gate 60.
Yeah, this movement in the wheel is really profound. We just left 62 and 61. So the inner truth of all the details leads into the laws. And this one with the sun in 56, it's just going to be really fitting. 56 and 60 seem like they don't go together. Stimulation, right? With
Limitation.
limitation. And it's a weird one. So when we get into why they go together, the cross is what makes them make sense.
Cool. I'm excited.
Function in humanity, yep.
I'm excited to get into this. So thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing and hanging out with us. And let's dive into it.
Thanks, everyone.
Here we have our mandala view, and we can see the sun is in gate 56, which is stimulation, and it's a throat center gate. And then the earth is in gate 60, which is limitation, and that's a root center gate.
So as far apart as you can get. I mean, I suppose you can go to head and ajna, but the sun in 56, the stimulation, that's where we're going to spend most of our focus. This is an opposition that's hard to make sense by itself. Other oppositions make sense by themselves. 14 and 8, get that work going so we can make a contribution. That makes sense by itself. This one is a little bit harder. I'm limited. I'm stuck. I'm in the quarter of mutation. I'm right before the new year. I feel like I can't even get going, and I'm stuck waiting on an individual pulse, and nothing makes sense. And 56 is, I just want to tell a stimulating story here. Let me put this with this. Let me put this with that. Let me put this with this. So
here we have the sun in gate 56, which is the wanderer in the gate of stimulation, stability through movement, perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity. Gate 56 is a throat center gate, part of collective circuitry, so sharing is our keynote, and it's part of the sensing circuit specifically. Gate 56 links up with gate 11, which is ideas, and the 1156 make up the channel of curiosity. Gate 56 is where ideas are gathered together and where visual memory is recollected and verbally recounted. This is the voice of the storyteller and philosopher saying, I believe. An idea is not a solution or a call to action, rather a journey over time designed to stimulate the formation of ideals and beliefs. Gate 56 is the mind translating human experience into language.
That's funny. So 56, I am stimulating. I stimulate. I stimulate the conversation. I am a seeker. I put things together. The linking of short-term activity can be activity, can be linking of this activity with, let's do this, and after we do this, we'll do this and do that. It's stimulating, it's wandering, and it's seeking when you do that out in the world, with your friends, let's say. But it's also linking short-term activity of thinking, because it's pointed right at an ajna gate. I have this thought, I have that thought. So this person could be linking short-term thoughtful activity inside their own mind when they have this whole channel. 56 is our capacity to metamorphosize chaos, not chaos, but confusion. Call it chaos and confusion. Why not? To metamorphosize chaos and confusion through this oppressive process that comes up with these ideas that are so colorful that don't need to make sense yet, necessarily. And they get made sense of through the activity of kicking it around and seeking what from this angle and seeking what from that angle. So it is the seeker, and try to understand the seeker is not always the finder. Very often it's not the finder. In fact, in life's process, seeking is not the finding, although sometimes seeking finds. Overall, what do we say? It's about the journey. Nobody wants to get to the end of their life and be like the journey wasn't worth it. And certainly at that point, you'll never get to your purpose anyways. So 56 is important. It's a way we basically stimulate and knock around all the ideas and think of the profundity of this movement. We went from I think to I believe. So it's unidirectional here on planet Earth. The greater cosmos goes backwards and it says I believe before I think, for us, relative to us. So we're part of that mixing bowl. But for us, it It's fairly unidirectional. It says, I think first, and then I'll go ahead and believe. So we got to go through a whole logical understanding process just to get to the believing part. And that's all metamorphic, manifested stuff in the throat. So this is a wicked important gate. It helps stimulate what the prodigal tells as a collective history, by the way, and it helps come up with songs to go with all of that. So right, you got to be able to sing it and tell it, and all the various things you would, and create festival for it. Let me stimulate you into this festival. I got a lot of great ideas. So much goes on here. It becomes part of the cross of laws, and its counterpoint in opposition is gate 60. So to see these two together when we get to gate 60, I'll say more of it, but it's to see these two together is to recognize that I am stuck. There's a stimulating, tire kicking, metamorphic, manifesting process in the throat, collective, being shared right now, more powerful than the other side of the collective, right? Because the experiential I believe, you can make a belief burn up the whole world and put the internet on fire, but you come up with some details in your logical opinion, and the internet might kick that around for a little while and beat it up and see if it makes any kind of sense. You know what I'm saying? But an idea can take flight totally. So I believe is the voice of stimulation, because to believe is a powerful thing to humans. And once this stimulates enough, it sort of rings the bell and takes off when you're soldering iron, when you're welding metal and you see all that croak on the outside, that stuff that always flakes off. It flakes off, and the guy will take a hammer and hit the burning hot steel to make it flake off more. The impurities is what that is. The stimulation is the doing of that to flake off the impurities that are getting in the way of transcendence, transcending the limitation, which is what gate 60 does. This is a process that helps refine what the law ought to be. And the law is tribal business. It's tribal first. I mean, it's collective, it's all of it, but it's tribal first. So this is an important process, and 56 helps bring that to life. I stimulate thee with I believe. If someone says, I think, Moni, you can be like, yeah, well, maybe. If someone says, hey, I have a belief, I believe, it's like, now it's almost reason for an argument. Whereas I think could still stay an intellectual conversation more easily, in a sense. So 56 is a little bit fiery. Let me tell you a story, it'll say. I got a story. Let me tell you a story. And it'll use those words. I know a 5611, and those are his words at the beginning of each time he's about to tell me a story. Apparently, he learned his energy tells stories, so it's a good idea to forecast it to make sure you don't get an objection. Which, by the way, I have.
Channel.
Yeah, right. It's a project, so it's a little. It's a little
like
bit
preface.
of a. Yes, you're prefacing it exactly. So you're prefacing it, so that the projector can sort of partly help you invite it in a way. Just
you want to hear a story, right? Who doesn't want to hear a story?
Well, and plus he never listens, so every once in a while I would object to him telling another story, and I'd even get a little rude about it, just he's a dude, so we can do this to each other, just to find out, and he doesn't care. It's coming. It was a gratuitous question. This thing is under pressure to share. It's a realization, after all, after a confusing time. That's the stream of awareness. The fuel of this stream is confusion, and the final expression is the ideas it believes coalesced into something that transcends a limitation. So the limitation part is far more weighted to the experiential side than it is to the logical side. I think that's interesting.
Here we have the Earth in gate 60, which is limitation and the gate of acceptance. The acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence. Gate 60 is a root center gate, part of individual circuitry, so empowerment is our keynote, and it's part of the knowing circuit specifically. Gate 60 links up with gate 3, which is ordering, and the 360 make up the channel of mutation. Gate 60 creates pressure needed for pure energy to mutate into form. The root center fuels restraint, which enables the pressure to build under each possibility. This is a creative mutative process subject to a pulse, And you never know when something has the potential to become a mutation that will be released.
I just found another symmetry. Yeah. And it's important because it's going to go into how I sort of explain this. So these are deeply linked. Remember when I was saying it doesn't make sense at first. It doesn't fully easily translate why 56 and 60 are in opposition, right? You know, they don't go together like 14 and 8, for example, and plenty of 34 and 20. You know, they go great together. We can see that. 60 is to 56 right here the same as 61 is to 62. So there's only one, there's two pressure centers. There's only one unique individual knowing pressure coming from the head center. 61 must ping 62. And now there's only one individual unique limit busting, if you're lucky, and sort of in a, just like a breakthrough and everything on a contribution and everything else you can read right up that whole column. 60, the same as 60 is to 56. So the pressure down below at the root, where it's far more fiery pressure, the root center is a motor. And where does the motor go? It's almost not fair. It's like all the motors keep going into the collective experiential process. Why logic is starved for energy. It's got like one thing, 58, that's it. You know, actually it's got 9 and 52, but you see what I'm saying? So 60 is to 56, just like 62 is to 61. They're the pressure center pings this collective logic. Pressure center pings the collective experiential, the two top corners of the throat.
Oh, okay, cool. I just like the visual finally all clicked into place
Yes,
because
and they must do that.
yeah, so let me just like talk it out though. Last week was
Yep.
the 62 and the 61, which we can see here with my little green cursor with the throat and the head center. And that goes that way. And then we have the 60, which is down here in the root center, and that with the 56. So it's interesting because the 61 is individual head pressure,
Yep.
whereas the 60 is individual root pressure.
Yep.
And then they each go to one of the sides. So the
Yep.
60 goes to the 56, and the
Yep.
61 goes to the 62. And that's an
I might
interesting
need to
little thing.
reverse the order in which I said what pings what. It's the 62 pings the 61. It's empowered because I keep pointing out all the other gates serve the individual circuitry. Whatever is not in the individual circuitry is served by the rest of the body graph. Consciousness wants our uniqueness. In fact, if we don't deliver it our uniqueness, we are not self. Period. As soon as we're not our unique self, we are not self. That's sort of by definition. So when we get here, 56 to stimulate in the throat, it pings the 60 and says, you may release. I'm here to keep twanging that string until the nut shakes loose, until the note comes out right. The tuning lens on the guitar that gets you in tune finally so you can transcend the limitation through acceptance. Part of tribal law giving. And it's, again, the same thing as in with last week. 62 pings the 61. It's like, hey, Mystery Factory, while you're determining consciousness for us and you're attempting to translate our existence through the act of mystery making and mystery solving, I've got the details for you. I ping thee. Here you go. So it's as if, again, civilization is setting up for us to make more in duality. It's really an organizing principle. It really is. This is organizing. A lot of arms are clicking together in an amazing, multifaceted, 10-dimensional Rubik's Cube. That makes sense. I couldn't do the 3D Rubik's Cube, but maybe I can do this one because it makes sense. I see it. That's weird. That is just weird. Please, Lord, don't let it be so.
Here we have our incarnation crosses for the week. First up, we have the right angle cross of laws, which adds the 3 and the 50. And these are effective storytellers who stimulate others with their idealistic opinions and beliefs. Their magic is spun around promises, the dreams of the dreamer. Then we'll move into the juxtaposition cross of stimulation, which adds the 27 and the 28. These are people who are willing to take risks in order to fill their need for any stimulation that gives meaning to their life. The storytellers who find release in telling their own story. Finally, we'll move into the left angle cross of distraction, which also adds the 27 and the 28. These are people who can appear distracted, but have a way of drawing attention to themselves or their projects through stimulating conversation.
Wow, this is some strange movement. It's very mutative movement. It's incredibly mutative movement, right? It contains the 3 and the 60 as a definition in this cross. So the channel of mutation is in the cross of laws, making it generated. This whole incarnation cross, having come off of the Maya, now moves into a cross that demands a generator. It says the law is generated. It is generated through apparently the responsiveness of the nine-centered being who is aware of their nature and lives out their strategy and authority can come up with the right law anytime. You know what? Our founding fathers had a pretty good clue of that, but they didn't take any chances and say leave it up to one. They said you have to have a jury of at least 12. And you put 12 men and women, well, back then it would have only been men, I'm pretty sure, together, though, and you will get the voice of God, in a sense. The closest way we could get to it would be to put 12 together and tell them they must be unanimous. That's intense, now that I think of it. So the law is saying, 60 said, I break the limitation. 56 says, I help stimulate that into a conversation, not just a fact. I think is the fact over on 62. This is I believe. That's a conversation. And the conversation says, as soon as it gets through and starts to the new beginning, right? Beginning again, gate 3, where it's ordering at the beginning of it all. And the only thing that's in the real awareness in all of this, the only awareness gate in all of this is gate 50. 50 steers the ship as to what's the actual deal. The deal is the tribal law. It's the source wave point of entry for the splenic, circuitry, and the splenic, what the splenic does. It's fired up by the sacral through 27, and then and look what's happening. We're tic-tac-toeing. Suddenly we have 2750, a new definition. So the mutation left, and we fired up the spleen. We've got this whole channel of caring going on. Now we must care about the law. So this is moving us from the Maya, where we just were the details, move into the substance of the law. It's almost like another yang yin or yin yang movement. The yang was the sheer white force of the Maya, right? Just the white light pouring in, and the yin's got to do the prism job of breaking it up into a spectrum of all its colors of law. Colors of law. And it's done here. And then you get to obviously stimulation, that is there to set it in stone, because the story always gets told, period. And then after it sets into stone, the funny way of looking at distraction is they themselves may appear distracted, or it may appear that they're attempting to distract you. What they're doing is they're drawing attention into something that hopefully will lead humanity into the empowered way where the law gets concretized. And that's what we move into in the unexpected, when we move into the very next week and we move into the next cross. 27 and the addition of 27 and 28 bring purpose to the nurturing act of caring, creating, basically, or wanting to create a definition. Well, the 56 and the 60 or so there didn't create a definition. My bad. 50 left us. So that was actually a mistake, what I just said. That channel of caring is not created, but still the purpose is there. So the purpose as to what to care for is what's there. And so this is the distraction is I distract you into what is worth being cared for. The purpose of it all. In fact, one individual unique person's purpose, 2 splenic gates, by the way, I find interesting. We left the 50 and we moved into the 28. And as a way of I'm trying to put more definition into this distracting. They themselves or their projects through stimulating conversation, the purpose of which is so unique that it takes stimulating conversation. So if I come up to you, Moni, and you've got a unique thing going on, it may seem like a distraction to me. These people hold a place. They just came off the Maya. They just came off of what would have been the mystery. They got a lot of stuff to say. And so it does seem a little distracting. In fact, this would be some obtuse stuff. So instead of obscuration before, obtuscuration here, because it could be a little bit obtuse. It's like, it's distracting. It's got gate 56 after all in this cross. So I think it leads perfectly.
Here we have our hexagrams for the week. We have the sun in gate 56, which is stimulation. And in my I Ching book, it reads as traveling. It's traveling around. The image reads, oh, and the trigrams.
I like it.
I figured, I was like, I felt like I needed to let that sit for a little bit for you to like register it. The trigrams are fire over mountain. The image reads, above the mountain is fire, traveling. A noble one is clear and thoughtful in administering punishments and does not draw out legal proceedings. The fire above the mountain is like a campfire. Before its limited fuel is exhausted and the flames die down, any disputes must be resolved. Then the travelers will be free to move on the next day. So a noble one completes things with the firmness of a mountain and uses the clarity of fire to cast light on decisions and endings. You have neither the resources nor the time to get embroiled in long, drawn-out wranglings, either with yourself or with others.
The stimulating activity of settling things with others needs firelight. I like that. As the firelight dies down, so the rolling mountain can move on. Right? People move on the next day.
Yeah, and even the trigram of the mountain is like stillness and recollection and consideration of things, and fire is about like burning off what isn't needed and like creating clarity. Then we have the earth in gate 60, which is limitation, and in my I Ching book, it reads as measuring. The trigrams are water over lake. The image reads, above the lake is the stream, measuring. A noble one crafts number and measure, reflecting on character in action. The streams flow into the lake and out from it, but how much water can the lake hold? Or how many channels can we dig leading out from it before there is insufficient water to reach our fields? A noble one will work out these limits to capacity and flow by discovering what works in practice. He is like the lake that reflects and deepens, and like the streams that flow out and reveal a character's depth and resources through action.
That's funny. I pointed at gate 60 being weighted towards the experiential process, but that language weights it back towards the logical process when I was pointing it out. But the water over the lake and having to figure out the limitation, I mean, in our body graph, one doesn't figure out the limitation appears and then disappears, right? That's how it works. So to me, just the water's always feeding into the lake, waiting for it to happen. Of course, it's going to water the fields. You know, we're supposed to be abundant. I think that's what the Earth in Gate 60 is really saying. We're supposed to be abundant. Well, I think of it. And the sun in 56 is, hey, let me tell you about it. This almost sounds like a revival, like something this could be a sermon I would hear, you know, in
Fire on the
church.
mountain.
Huh? Well,
Yeah.
the whole thing, both hexagrams together.
Yeah,
it's the celebration of water and lake and the warmth and light of fire on the rolling mountain, you know.
That's cool. Yeah, because especially lake is about abundance and joyousness as a trigram, and then water is about depth and like the abyss. So it's like a depth of abundance. That sounds nice.
Water giveth life, and we're supposed to transcend that. Basically, the limitation it only feels like a limitation. So what is the trick to the transcendence of that? This depth of water through the recognition of abundance. You know, what does that? And it's just the act of accepting it, because sometimes the limitation is something that through acceptance you transcend it, and other times it's through acceptance you ignore it. And sometimes it's through acceptance something happens and a talented little skill comes out and you kill it. You're good, and then suddenly the limitation truly is not. I used to think I wasn't about my piano playing. I had certain thoughts about what I could never do. And 30 years later, after enough repetition, all excited, by the way, every time, I'm always excited when I start playing it, I found that's not true. So it's one of those three things. And I think that I put all the rest of that together when you read that I Ching language, frankly. So the limitation of we're not abundant, that's all BS. We actually are. We need to transcend the limitation of the not self that lives in a lack mentality concerning itself that it's not abundant. The nine-centered way can create abundance overnight.
So, tying it all together for our audience, what can they do with this week? How can they see it? How can they play with it? What can they do with it?
What are the gates again? 56 and 60?
Mm-hmm. Earth in 60, the sun in 56.
The very last thing I said. This is, to me, this might be more of a spiritual place rather than anything concretized, but there is a heavy limitation that burdens our soul. It's a format in us that's supposed to drive consciousness as proof that it's the format channel affects everything. It's that format energy is driven into the whole rest of that circuitry, our unique individual way. And we just came off of 61, which is up at the top. And so spiritually speaking, you have to recognize your abundance. And as soon as you do the thing that every single self-help thing I've ever heard told you, start telling yourself it. And what's that require? A stimulating voice. Stimulating activity inside. Remember, I said it's not just the stimulation with the other, it's your own inside internal dialogue and the thoughts in there. And so, let them speak. So start to dream up all the ways in which you're abundant. And don't worry about the material aspects that your not self keeps pointing to that you are not. That's the limitation. So it's a deep, I say go deep on, this particular week. Allow it to wash over you. Don't even think too much of it. Part of it's in a pulse. 56 may have plenty to say, but you're still waiting on the 60 to give it. Right? Not up to us. What do you think, Moni?
Yeah, I like that. And considering the earth in gate 60, so being grounded in the limitation, right? So
Yes.
it's like the first
best place for it. Best place. Sun is a little crazy when the 60's in the sun, but in the earth, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, right. It makes sense because you first have to know what your limitation is. You have to know that you can't swim before you can try to learn to swim or learn to surf. Recognize.
I can't breathe underwater. No matter how many times I dreamed I was Aquaman and woke up swearing to God I breathed underwater.
Exactly. Like recognize your limitations, be grounded in them. So then, right, like then you can grow from it. And then especially with the sun in gate 56, off of what you were saying, it's like, what stories are you telling yourself? This is this part of this like channel of the storyteller, this voice of the storyteller. So how are you stimulating yourself, right? Are you speaking highly to yourself? Are you encouraging to yourself? Are you, coming up with something cool and how neat it would be to learn something or do something? Or are you degrading yourself? With every word that we say and every action that we partake in, either we're uplifting ourselves or we're degrading ourselves. Both of those are stimulating us in a direction. So being very mindful of like, how are we using our language?
With lots of short-term activity, because you're telling yourself this and then that and then this and then that. Lots of short-term thoughts all coalescing into a mess is what you're pointing to.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in like our hyper techie times where everything is so quick and fast. So it's like, what stories are you telling yourself and what stories are you telling other people? Like how we speak to other people, that's just as important as like how we're engaging in what we're putting out in that way. So yeah, like being grounded in where we're limited, to recognize that, because that's the first step to being able to grow beyond your limitations, and to recognize where you are, and then shining that sun of a stimulating story in a direction you actually want to go in.
What story are you telling yourself? That is just so the key, you know. The story's supposed to be, I love me and I think I'm amazing. That's at the root of your story. That's the 4-year-old's text of that story. You know, because the 4-year-old's not going to write a book. They're just going to say a simple thing. And so this week, I mean, to me, the whole what to do this week is to recognize one of the limitations isn't abundance. We're supposed to be there. The transcendence is that acceptance. I'm already supposed to be there. I already am that. Ultimately, you keep telling yourself that, out will come the stimulating stories as to why you are that, no matter how, because don't forget, 56 says, I believe. Now's the time to alter and transcend some old beliefs, frankly. Now's the time to alter, address, look right squarely at, and start to transcend through acceptance some old beliefs. And the acceptance is not, the acceptance is not that you hang on to the belief that you believe your old belief. The acceptance is that, yes, you did believe that, but it's not true. You're accepting it's not truth of certain old limiting beliefs. Now's the time to stimulatingly tell yourself that. And again, the 4-year-old voice just says, dude, I love me. I love being me. I love when I think stuff and then I sit there and I love it. You know, I mean, what's not to love? And that makes, I think I'm great. So have you told yourself this week that I love myself and I think I'm amazing? And if you find it hard choking those words out of your mouth, it's because there's a limitation that you have to accept. And by the way, it's not one of abundance. As soon as you accept it, the human condition is meant to bring it. So now's the time to start to recognize that what the abundance is really supposed to look like. Food grows out of the ground if you plant some seeds. It's incredible. It never stops, by the way. Can't even eat it all. I'm not even kidding. I grew a garden this year and I can't get to it all.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And other stuff does that. Ideas grow out of us. We can't get to them all. Why even try? It's, you know, and the nine-centered way towards communion wants to have love amongst it all. Be the guiding empowerment, just like the Sphinx is asking. The Sphinx isn't sitting up on its high horse getting all the direction with its little reins on the horses knowing which way to go, empowered by some crap. It's empowered by love. And that's what the direction of humanity is supposed to do. That's why gate 2 is always in a hurry to get there. Chop, chop, chop. Let's go. More beauty. Make it prettier. Let's share that. Let's empower that. Let's contribute that. All of it. That's the direction. 2 has omnidirectional, and it literally fulfills all of that. So don't worry about the abundance part. Just start saying, I believe that it has to be that way, and that's what I already am. And the rest of the pieces will start to chip away like a good Michelangelo statue.
Beautiful.
I like it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
This is spiritual stuff, right? This is get into the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deeply.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Moni.
Thank you to our audience. Thank you for liking and subscribing and commenting and asking questions. We love you. We love having you. Thanks for being part of this with us. And we will catch you next week for another transit.
Love everybody. Thanks so much for listening.